Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel, The Nature and the Wild. So today we are going to discuss a very hot topic, especially in the bird photography. How we going to shoot the birds while they are in flight? What kind of camera settings we should use? What kind of camera we should use? So we're going to cover all these aspects one by one during this video. But the first thing first, practice. Go out, take your camera, go nearest place where you know a lot of birds can be found. Doesn't matter what kind of bird, it can be a duck, it can be seagull, whatever you can see. And if you see they are in action like flying or fighting, or just try to capture as much as possible pictures. Try different settings on your camera, and at the end it will give you the great control over the camera. You will have some perspectives and some settings already imprinted in your mind. So let's start this video. Stay tuned. So guys, when we talk about wildlife photography, especially in the birds in flight mode, we must look about the type of cameras we have in the market, and we must choose the right camera for wildlife photography. So we need to think about 2 points in the mind. One, the camera should have a continuous shooting mode where you should not miss any chance or any movement of the subject. Second, the camera should have autofocus operation mode. So that means the camera can be customized to use different autofocus points of the subject, and that is pretty much needed for the wildlife photography. So let's move to the topic. The first option, while we want to shoot the birds in flight, the first setting we need to check when we have our camera in hand, the autofocus operations. I am a Canon user, and if I look into my Canon camera, I have autofocus operation. There are two kinds of operation. One is continuous autofocus. So that means if the subject is sitting and you are focusing on the subject, it will keep the focus on the subject. But what about if the subjects move drastically? Then we have the second option called AI servo. AI servo is the most best choice for the birds in flight, because your bird is consistently moving and you make sure that your camera can consistently focus the bird and readjust the focus. So set your camera on the AI servo. Point number 2, we must select the autofocus area, which area we should focus while the bird is moving. In the camera we have spot on, which will be like just the spot on the subject, very useful when the bird is sitting on a porch or it's a static bird or static subject, not moving too much. But when they're moving too much, you might think to expand the autofocus area. If you have more area to focus, then you have more chance to think where the bird can move suddenly, right? So exactly. So what I use in Canon R7, you have a zone 3. I have a zone 3 autofocus area, and I keep the eye tracking on the bird. So when I focus on the bird, it's moving, my camera tries to focus on the bird consistently because I'm using AI servo, and I have bigger area where my camera can think where the bird can go, and it's keep tracking its eye. So this is a very important option you must try before shooting the birds in flight. The modern cameras, they have a couple of different settings which also goes with the setting of your autofocus. Like on Canon R7, if you go to the Canon R7, you need to set up some cases. It has like 4 cases where 4 different kind of scenarios you can set it up. You can set the camera's tracking sensitivity. You can set how the camera will respond if the subject move how the camera will behave when the subject moves so fast or it's very dynamic. I will not go into those settings right now, but maybe in a different video. But you definitely have to think about different use cases inside your camera. So just for a tip, on the R7 you have 4 settings, and out of the 4 settings you can use any one of them. I use normally the setting number 2, which is like continuously track the subject. One more thing we must think about it. You have a big bird which fly very slowly, and when it flies slowly, it's more easier to capture the bird. That time our camera's tracking sensitivity comes into the picture. So the more you put the settings are more sensitive, so that means if the subject moves faster, camera's tracking system works faster with it. And if you put the less sensitivity, then the camera will track it slower than as usual. So always judge the bird or your subject which is moving, how fast it can move. Like an eagle moves with a normal speed, but a small bird like a robin is too fast. So you need to adjust your tracking sensitivity. Next option is very useful. What we do normally when we try to take a picture, we always put our shutter button. Of course, the button which we press to click the picture is on a focus mode. But what's going to happen if you try to capture the bird which is moving too fast? You focus it, it's in focus, you click, the birds move from here one point to another point, you again focus, you move. You are wasting a lot of time in that process, and your camera need to readjust the focus each and every time, the tracking each and every time you press the button. So what we do, we're going to move the focusing point from the shutter button to the back button. Every DSLR camera or the new H cameras right now we have, like Canon R7, R5, R6 has a back button. You can customize this back button as your autofocus. So once you press the back button, focus the bird, tracking is started to press the shutter button to click the picture. And believe me, it will give you more freedom, more time to think and capture the nice in each and every moment of the bird, because your camera don't need to readjust the focus. That is the beauty with the modernist cameras right now. I will suggest you guys use your camera on a shutter priority mode. So that means when you put your camera on the shutter priority, let me just put it. So when you put the camera on the shutter priority, you can change the shutter speed with one click of your button, and rest of the things will be automatic. The ISO is auto. For the bird, relatively, we need to think about the shutter speed, and it's a proportional to the bird speed. What does it mean? If you have a small bird and those small birds are flying more faster than a bigger bird. As an example, if you are photographing a small, let's say a robin, its flaps is being much faster than a kite. So you need to put your shutter speed higher. So any small bird, thumb up the rule, if you put your shutter speed more than 1000, 1000, 1200, it's absolutely fine. 1000 shutter speed is a very perfect for photographing the bird in flight. You can go higher. But how much? That's the question. That depends on what kind of lens you are using. Because if you are using a lens which aperture is 9, then you don't have much room if the light is not that good and you are photographing a bird in the evening. Let's say the light is very bad. You cannot go 1000 or 2000 or 3000 of the shutter speed. then you introduce a lot of noise into a picture. So everything is proportional to each other. You need to think, when I can increase the shutter speed. If you have a lens with f4, you have more room to introduce much higher shutter speed. So if you have a lens f4, you have more room to increase the shutter speed and play with a low ISO. But doesn't matter, nowadays all the new cameras can handle very high ISO. I don't think a ISO of 3000 or 6000 will do much harm. If you introduce little bit noise, you can always process them and get a nice clean picture. So any bird, if you put your shutter speed between 1000 to 1250 or 2000, it's absolutely fine. You can get nice and clear pictures. Another thing, you must think about the lens, what kind of lens you are using. If you're using a RF 100 to 500 for the Canon, as I said, I'm a Canon user. So if you're using a RF 100 to 500, you have a maximum aperture of 7.1. Okay, so in that scenario, you must think all the three ratios. Plus, the best thing is you also need to think about the image stabilization. All the new cameras have it. All the new cameras in the market right now have in-body image stabilization, and also the lenses have an IS installed. Both image stabilizations works together, camera and the lens. Keep it turned on, put your focus point infinity. Every lens nowadays have most of the time 1 or 2 focus length mode, like the RF lenses have 1 to infinity, so you can just turn it on at the maximum focus. Just to summarize, guys, get a nice camera with continuous shooting speed, with more autofocus point, put the tracking on, animal tracking, bump up your shutter speed, get as proportional to the bird, what kind of bird you are photographing, and get the nice ISO level so that you will not introduce a lot of noise. Check your lenses, stabilizations, the focus distance limiters. If you keep all of this in mind, set up your camera in that way, and then all you need to have patience. Just wait, practice, and click the picture. Thank you guys for staying with me. Please like and subscribe my channel. Let me know what else you want to know. I will always come up with some good ideas and some good videos. Thanks a lot for subscribing my channel.